Tough Talk Media, where real conversations shape real impact. Join us as we dig deeper into thought-provoking perspectives that challenge, inform, and inspire action. Subscribe today and be part of the conversation.
Now, nearly a year into the budget cycle, analysts are expressing concern that there is a sluggish disbursement of funds which could slow down infrastructure delivery and affect the administration reform agenda. There are those who even worry about the capital implementation of the budget of 2024 dovetailing into 2025. We're just how many weeks into to the new year, yet we're still unclear as to the percentage of implementation of the 2025 budget. It does look like things are really not shaping up in terms of budget implementation. Let me bring in Seun Onigbinde, who is a co-founder of Budget Foundation. Thank you so much, Seun, for joining us tonight on the program.
It's a pleasure being here today. Thank you so much.
This is beyond a Trump panic effect. But there is a problem in our budget implementation. The figures are not tallying. Things are not looking up at all. What are the figures saying? And why are we doing so badly in terms of budget implementation?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. And I think this is a very timely conversation, considering the fact that we do not even understand the number of projects being implemented currently by the current government. We had the 2023 budget and the 2023 supplementary budget extended to 2024. Then after a while, we saw that 2023 or so, 2024 budget was also extended a little bit more. Now, we also heard that the 2025 budget capital component, the implementation just kicked off in October. I mean, the president signed the budget earlier in the year, I think around March, and we're now starting just capital budget implementation in October. Shows that there is gross disconnect. There is a challenge in the fiscal structure of the federal government. So as of now, we don't even have any budget implementation report of 2025 budget, and we are in the third quarter. So we are missing at least the Q1 and the Q2 budget implementation report of the federal government. When you dial that back and you look into what are the implications of this, number one, you do not even understand which project is being implemented and how significant that project is into national development. Because previously, if you have executed a budget at the end of the year, what you're supposed to do is to mop up the relevant items in that budget and present a supplementary budget. So you don't keep extending the budget life to another 18 months or another 12 months. It creates a huge level of distortion. So what we have seen currently is the budget now extended into 2025, and we're asking ourselves, when does 2025 budget, when does it begin? Why can't they have warehoused the most important budget project in 2024 budget, make it a supplementary budget, and add it to the 2025 budget so the 2025 budget can continue? As of now, this is November 12, 2025. We do not have the draft MTF document. We do not have the proposed budget. We do not even have it in front of FEC. Talk less of that. The budget will now be presented to the president. So when you look at it evidently, it shows like we are highly unserious, about the progress, about the fiscal progress of this country. And my challenge is also that it's just a lack of coordination. But all of this rests on the table of the president. There seems to be a disconnect between the budget office, the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, and the Ministry of Finance, so that they all follow the same pattern in the delivery of the budget. You have to give a little bit of kudos to former President Buhari. He instituted a framework that said the budget will begin by January 1 and end by December. Sometimes the budget was presented late, but they made sure that on the first day of the year, the budget was signed into law. This current government seems that they have broken that covenant, and what we have right now is that there seems to be no calendar to the national budget, which is really, really unfortunate.
When they got the baton, it was going to be a continuous effort to sustain. You remember, prior to the coming of the Buhari government, and kudos also when you say there is a bit of a stabilization in the budget cycle, and in fact, Was it under Okonjo-Iweala that we started seeing budget being presented in October for us to be able to actually have the document being scrutinized before the end of the year? We are in November. The budget has not come out. The National Assembly has not started of 2026. That those will even be asking the question, do we even need a 2026 budget, considering the performance of the 2024 and 2025 budget? But in terms of figures, let's be analytical. What are the figures saying? What was the performance, the percentage performance of 2024? What does it say? Where are we in 2025? What are the deficits in terms of the performance and the work being done?
I mean, like I said, the last figure we had was for the 2024 implementation report. And if you look into those figures, federal government had the target of 25 trillion naira in revenue. But those figures, they made around 21 trillion naira in revenue. So if you look clearly, federal government revenue jumped from 12.4 trillion in 2023 to 20.98 trillion in 2024. So there was nominally, there was around an 8 trillion naira jump in federal government revenue within a single year. Obviously, in 2025, we would expect that those numbers will be inching towards around 25 trillion. Let's not forget that the devaluation in 2023 gave an opportunity for the numbers to rise in 2024. But as you get that side of revenue, there's also the other side of things, which is the debt servicing cost. If we look deeply at the debt servicing cost of the federal government, it nearly doubled from 6.86 trillion to 12.36 trillion. So now, if you have a revenue of 20 trillion naira, and I think that's the problem of the federal government right now. You have a revenue in 2024 of 20 trillion naira. You use 12 trillion naira to service public debt. Obviously, you're going to pay salaries of around 6 trillion naira. Obviously, you're going to run what you call statutory transfers, National Assembly, NJC, and the rest, INEC, around another 2 trillion naira. So there's technically next to nothing left for you to implement capital expenditure unless you borrow. And I mean, a lot of Nigerians have been happy on the federal government continuous borrowing. It's just because the federal government, irrespective of how much numbers they are putting out there, do not still have the required resources to execute the scale of the budget that they put out there. So the federal government is still going to keep borrowing, except we forbid us go back to the days of President Muhammadu Buhari, where CBN, became like a buffer for all of these things. But right now, we are in a situation where the federal government still revenue, no matter how much exciting that it might look like, it still doesn't meet the quota. By the time you look at the capital expenditure for 2024, it was put around 6.4 trillion. So we budgeted 12 trillion naira for capital expenditure in 2024, and we used 6 trillion naira. So it was a 50% capital expenditure performance in 2024. And don't forget that capital expenditure performance extended up to 2025. So if that's even as at June 2025 is when we have spent 6 trillion. So you could technically say we have not even executed anything in 2025. So even if they bring the 2025 budget implementation report, all you are going to see in that report is just recurrent expenditure and recurrent expenditure. We have not used that budget capital-wise, and which is an anomaly in how we currently run the budgeting system. And if somebody says, why do we need 2026 budget? This is a valid position, because if you have 2025 budgets and you're just starting capital components in October, why do you need a 2026 budget? But let's not overforget that even if you start 2025 capital budget in October, the recurring side has been running since January, because salaries would not wait, overheads would not wait, statutory transfer payments would not wait, and other consolidated expenses would not wait. So it is the capital expenditure component that suffer. And there's also a pushback from the National Assembly in terms of a lot of constituency projects are not funded, and National Assembly is giving a pushback around this. But it's also something that has to come forward clearly, that National Assembly also has to reflect heavily on the insertions that they are making into the budgets. The federal government does not want to go back to the dark old days where the CBN was the piggy bank to fund capital expenditure. So it's very important that National Assembly also supports the executive in capital budget prioritization. If that does not happen, we'll keep having bloated capital budgets and we will not execute any, which is the situation where we have found ourselves now.
We've seen contractors throng the street of Abuja protesting of almost over a year of unpaid contracts that are being completed. Seun, where do we go from here? Is this situation rescuable?
Yeah, I mean, it's rescuable. The only thing is the political will has to come into play right now. The president has to show leadership and has to enforce some interagency coordination. And there has to be some ground rules. And our own approach as budget is simple. Not everything in the budget needs to be funded. A lot of things in the budget are not necessarily needed for national development. They are mainly extension of personal interest. So what the president should do is to set his priority right. If anything is within his priority and the resources do not back that up, make it into a supplementary budget and forward it to the next year. But this lopsided budget implementation is not helpful for national development in any way.
Thank you so much, Seun Onigbinde.
Stay informed, stay inspired, stay tuned to Tough Talk Media, where real conversations shape real impact. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking discussions. Thanks for watching.